So memes and short phrases such as "what you believe in is what you will see" can be misleading. There are nuances, but in our current times, in the age of memes and quick quote wisdom, with a population that has largely been conditioned to prefer others governing them or representing them, such a quote, like so many other memes, can be false wisdom, at least to a certain degree. It is true that people are prone to what popular psychology calls projecting, that is, to ascribe unto others that which we see within ourselves. Subconscious opinions of our truths are nearly always very subjective in nature. That doesn't necessarily make what we observe or see only our own beliefs into subjective observations, as the quote would infer you to believe. Let me explain. We live in a very fast-paced society that has gotten far too used to instant information and gratification. Memes can function in the same way that our minds record and recall strong emotional moments in our lives, both positive and negative emotional memories. Although these memory frames can sometimes be something horrific, which is how memories occur in people suffering with PTSD, for instance, post-traumatic stress disorder, we are talking more about those special moments mostly, like watching and assisting in the birth of your child, or watching the first time your child tastes something delicious and new to them, or taking their first step, your first kiss, or holding someone you love during a slightly breezy but warm and rainy afternoon, and not merely getting wet from the rain, but really feeling the rain, living wholly in that moment. Human beings tend to recall memories as still frame images, which is why posters of images from our childhood can be so memorable and why memes can be so memorable to us now. But memes today, the modern age posters, are also very subconsciously influential, especially in the quantity in which they are created and shared on social media platforms. This is why memes are often created as purposely deceiving disinformation still frames to influence people's opinions, which again are subjective, into a state of mind that makes them more easily manipulatable for possibly selfish and often dark agenda, ego, and greed-driven purposes, especially during political strife. These memes are then passed along by the average person with no ill intent as misinformation, accidental but still damaging. This is what makes slogans so effective and why sound bites of information can be so easily misunderstood. So the example meme that we are examining here is an attempted gaslight. It is not that we have a dark and twisted evil mind that sees only the bad or evil darkness in our world, but make no mistake that we do indeed see evil darkness happening that we say is 100% objectively, unequivocally, and undeniably immoral and wrong. We see human beings lording and ruling over other human beings as wrong. This, by proxy, means that all governments of any kind for the entirety of all human history have been wrong. We see that throughout all our shared human history that we have allowed our continued human condition to have been, and indeed still is, one of slavery and forced servitude of one kind or another, which is wrong. Voting is wrong. Politically granted authority to another that a person does not have is wrong. Forcing young men to go murder and get murdered is wrong. We see democide, the leading cause of unnatural deaths by government, is wrong. We see the belief in human authority over other beings to declare what is moral and right or immoral and not right is within itself wrong. So then you ask and say, well, why are these wrong? I'm going to put some questions on the screen for you and really think about it. Pause the video if you have to. But what is then this do and don't, or right and wrong to morality? Well, it's set in creation for us by God, you can say, with a capital G. And We are not talking about some bearded man in the sky created by humanity whose dogmatic beliefs are used as control mechanisms and excuses to justify the constant murder over one another. No, we're looking at some grand intelligence within the universe, natural laws you might call it. Morality can be understood even if you're not a religious individual. It's about seeing the reciprocity and the golden rule in all our interactions. So here's a basic guideline for the don't. Murder, rape, assault, steal, trespass, coercion, lying. These are otherwise known as the 7 transgressions of natural law, which initiates harm to others. It creates a victim, they're involuntary, they're stealing something that does not belong to you. And the do's, what is right, is literally pretty much anything else you want, right? So we see all this bad stuff and we do not have to believe it to understand objectively what it is. Truth is knowable and objective. Once known, it is up to us to realign our perception to it if need be. The New Age spirituality being parroted and vomited in memes by far too many New Age yoga teachers may thus be seen as a plan instituted to create tranquil solipsists incapable of taking action. It is the antithesis of true love and care, as it is the suppression of normal human emotions. These teachings are purposely out of balance and deceptively false teachings being spread by many modern-day yoga teachers. And politically driven voters, this is not by accident. And in fact, you'll also not see that among people who are or not spiritual, people who do yoga or people who don't do yoga, that they'll never really address what I have addressed when I talked about statism, when I talked about democide, when I talked about authority and how human beings don't really have that over other human beings. That never really goes addressed, despite how they talk constantly about love and peace and sharing that with the rest of humankind. So if we're not addressing the problem and we're just looking at what is good, but we don't see what is bad is holding us back, then we never really move forward, do we? This is why New Age teachings can be very deceptive and to a great extent. So this article was written by Daniel Arnold, who was a 20-plus year law enforcement veteran who escaped and warns against the system. Okay, he really is a great guy. I interviewed him for the End of Slavery Summit, and he shares his experience among understanding many of these insights. Quote, "As a spiritually awakened, not woke yoga teacher, I am very bothered by the dark side of gratitude, mindfulness, self-love, and statements like what you resist persists. The overarching solipsistic views these teachings promote are murdering the human spirit to act. And make no mistake, we are in a spiritual war. If your wisdom breeds cognitive dissonance and enables Stockholm Syndrome, your spiritual insights will hurt and not help others. Research and avoid the Dunning-Kruger effect. Many yogis doing this are good people, but you have been bamboozled. We must quiet our minds a bit, remember who we are, remember our capacity for love, empathy, compassion, and we will remember what we are. Consciousness, light, and love manifested. Then we can unite, fight if need be, and rise from this darkness all together. Only in rising from my own darkness could I see this," end quote. So if you want to learn a lot more about Daniel Arnold and his work about this, you can go to his website, spiritualanarchist93.com. That's spiritualanarchist93.com. And I'm going to put a graph on the screen as well for you. And this is the real political spectrum. It's a function of consciousness and morality. And you'll notice that as consciousness and enlightenment and morality increases, freedom increases, and people start to understand more of who they are, they can rule themselves and therefore do not need rulers or other people over their own life. They're not telling others how to live their own life. They understand their place, who they are. Know thyself. Right? We talk about these. They're spiritual, philosophical teachings that have been passed down for ages, but yet we might contradict it because we have this statist belief system, which again is a word most people have never heard of. So you'll see memes out there of all sorts of different kinds, but which ones are actually really talking about statism. I do know that artofliberty.org, they have a bunch of memes talking about this, but they're one of the only few doing that. And then there's Benny Willis, who does the same thing, and he writes poetry as well. If you don't know about their work, I recommend checking it out. So, there are people producing memes for that type of information, but there's also a lot of people promoting memes that are political, that are just to laugh at, but they're not actually insightful. They're not going to get people to really think about their own belief system, challenge themselves, and get them thinking outside the box. And this is what I want humanity to do if we're actually going to evolve to what I see to be a greater human destiny, and that is true freedom. If you want to learn more, go to theliberator.us. That's theliberator.us. Send us your article. I'll turn it into a video for you. Thank you for watching.